be back in this room Tuesday night, December the 5th. That's our Christmas party. Hopefully you received information about that over the email. And we're going to have a great evening, Christmas dinner. Can I get your attention, please? Thank you. We're going to have a great Christmas party. We've had it here for the last 2 years. We decorate this place up. It really looks nice. And we usually have some exciting things happening, some guest appearances. Our silent auction this time is going to be phenomenal. We've got, let me just give you a couple of ideas on things we're going to be having. Besides, we have one basket that Sue Everhart's made up. It's really a neat basket that's going to be, it's worth a lot of money, what you put in there. We have Gary Black. He's going to, we're going to auction off a barbecue lunch with Gary and Lydia Black at their farm in the barn, up to 20 people. So if you have an office staff or something like that, or a large family, you can take them out there and do that. Or you can go down, you can bid on the lunch with our Secretary of State, Brian Kemp. Go down to his office, have a box lunch in private with him, and then he'll give you a tour of the Capitol. Or lunch at one of the local restaurants with our Attorney General, Sam Owens. Or if you're into music, or if you were a Mike Huckabee fan, as I was. One guitar.
Half price.
One guitar signed by Mike Huckabee.
Joe, hold up again.
Joe.
Don't drop it.
Don't drop it.
It was valuable, Joe.
Okay. That reminds me, somebody that is not recognized often enough is the person that takes pictures and posts them on our website every month after month, and every event after event. That's John Bill. So let's give him a hand. You charge too much. Sorry, it's free. But do come to the Christmas party. The tickets, we can sell those to you today. They're $20 advance tickets. You can get them online at $20 up until midnight on Monday night, I think it is. And then at the door it'll be $25. So this way, if you get your tickets ahead of time, we know how many people to prepare for it. We'll have some good food too. Outside of that, I'm going to recognize a couple of people. I'll let a couple of candidates come up here before we get to our keynote speakers. Do we have any candidates that are here that must leave to be in one of the Christmas parades this morning? Tricia, anybody else? Come on up, Tricia. Okay, Jack, you too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tricia Pridemore, and I'm a candidate for Congress here in the 11th Congressional District. And this morning, Matt and I, who works with me on the campaign that many of y'all know, we spent some time at a special needs breakfast for special needs kids. And by the way, when you run for office, they give you the mic just for a couple of minutes, and they tell you you can talk about your campaign or really anything that you want to talk about. I'm choosing the latter. I want to talk about anything I want to talk about. And I met a gentleman named Frank who has lived in the United States since he was 13 years old, and he came from Cuba. And he talked a little bit about his story, a little bit about what happened to his grandfather, who was a farmer in Cuba, and why his family left Cuba for the United States. And he said to me something that, ever since he said this, I can't get it out of my mind. What happened in Cuba happened because there wasn't any light. And being that it's the Christmas season, many of us know exactly what he's talking about. We know where the light comes from. I know where my light comes from. People ask me all the time how I campaign so much and how I've got so much energy, and I laugh and say coffee and prayer. I'll tell you guys something. I know where my light comes from. I have a treasure in a jar of clay, and I hope you do too. I hope you do too. Please, this Christmas season, trust in Him. Put your full trust in Him. Our nation is going through a lot of challenges right now. We are hard-pressed on every side, but we are not crushed. We are struck down, but we are not destroyed. We do have treasures. and we do have treasures in a jar of clay. Let the light of this season guide you and your family and your friends through the rest of this month and on into 2014. Merry Christmas to you, and Merry Christmas to your family.
Of course, we're going to have all the candidates have a minute at the microphone, have a background keynote speaker speak, but Jack also has to leave.
Thank you very much, Joe. I just want to say this. As we continue the fight to defund and derail Obamacare, there were a couple of things that happened this week of great interest. Number one, Harry Reid exempted his staff from it. Number two, Obama still has not signed up for it himself. I love the visual of him sitting down at the computer surrounded by his wife and beautiful children, typing in and saying, doggone it, it's been now 4 days and I can't even sign up. I think that you and I need to continue to dismantle this thing bit by bit and do whatever it takes to get health care back into the private market, because that's where the best solutions are in America. I have introduced a bill that said the president would, in fact, have to go under Obamacare. And so would his cabinet, and so would his political appointees. I think as we look at bit by bit the things that we could do to dismantle this and undermine it, and I feel very strongly that if Obamacare is teetering at the edge of a cliff, you and I as conservatives shouldn't stand back and watch. We should push it over. We're doing our part. I voted 40 times to kill this bill. I'm chair of the committee that defunds it. 3 years ago, Jeff Flake and Michelle Bachmann and I introduced a bill to defund its forward appropriations. We are going to continue to do everything we can, and if you would like to learn more, please let us know. Thank you very much for letting me be with you today.
This morning we have, besides the speaker this morning, we still have one more senatorial candidate who we can't seem to link up with. The time that he was scheduled, and this was Paul Brown, the time that he was scheduled to speak before, they had to stay in D.C. and on a vote. And then I had him scheduled for this morning, but his staff sort of messed up, so he's in Carroll County right now. But so we have one more of our senatorial candidates this morning, and we're starting our candidates for the 11th District congressional seat. And we're going to be starting that with one of them, Ed Lindsay. But this morning we have David Perdue and his lovely wife with us this morning. Ed Lindsay and his lovely wife with us this morning. So after these two speakers speak, we're going to have the other candidates come up and say a few words. But right now, you have somebody introducing you. I think John is. John, come on up.
Good morning. I'm a voter. My second time to this meeting is second time today. And I guess I asked myself, why would I want to do this? After voting so many years and living in Georgia and Sandy Springs and Cobb County, I had a friend 40 years ago, 35 years ago, that was a good basketball player, a good softball player, and I was able to enjoy that sport with him. I hadn't seen him in a number of years, and now I found out he went on and was very successful in business. He was a nice guy 25, 30 years ago, and I thought, well, you know, I'll go meet Dave and just see who he is today. And I had the pleasure of walking over and meeting Dave, and if he didn't come out, and I met the same guy I knew 30 years ago. He's a real person. He's a person that you can trust, a person that is going to work hard for everybody and then tell you the truth back. And I say that from the heart. There are very few people we meet along the way that we really have a sincere belief and faith that what they tell you is true. We need more of that. Watch TV and we all know that. But I just land on one positive note. For those who are not Georgia fans, for those of us who are display was 32 long tip. My friend,
You know, I hate to get behind a cocky Auburn fan. I went to Georgia Tech, and we don't, I'm sorry?
We're not cocky, we're just sure.
I went to Georgia Tech, and we don't talk football anymore. Good morning, guys. I am really glad to be here. I've got a very simple message for us this morning. It's very serious, but it's very uplifting at the same time. When I look at it in faces like this at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning, and I had 2 young Republican meetings this week, I've never been more energized, guys, because the future is in good hands. And with people like us to guide them, America has got great days ahead of it. My message is very simple. We have a full-blown financial crisis on our hands. It's real, and it's here right now. It's not something our grandkids are going to deal with alone. We have to deal with it the rest of our lives right now. 2, career politicians caused it, and we just simply can't, in my opinion, trust them to fix it. There's very little business acumen up there with which to deal with our free enterprise system. The 3rd is that I'm not a politician, and I'm proud of it. I'm a business guy. I worked 41 years in the real world. And that gave me a perspective that I'm bringing to this effort. I never wanted to do this. I never thought about doing this. I'm doing this because I honestly believe that we are in a financial crisis and that I can make a difference. $17 trillion we all know about. What we aren't talking about is $86 trillion of future unfunded liability related to Social Security, Medicare, and future pension benefits of federal employees. I had dinner 2 months ago with 4 past Secretaries of Defense, and they all agreed that the #1 threat, and listen to this, the #1 threat to national security is not Iran, it's not China, it's not Al-Qaeda, it's our own federal United States debt. And you hear those gentlemen, they're smart, and they've been there. And they have no political bias. They're telling you the truth, that the debt is our crisis. It's our own foolishness. You realize in the 80s, we bankrupted the Soviet Union on the strength of our economy and the power of our ideas? And now what are we doing? We're bankrupting ourselves through our own foolishness. And who's to blame for that? I guess I am. But you know what? I think you are too. You know why? Because we keep putting the same people up there and expecting different results. You realize that 36 United States senators have been in elected office for over 30 years. Now that's just not right. One gentleman's been up there 54 years. He's running for re-election this year in Iowa. And that's not bad enough. Only 10 people in the United States Senate have any business background. Only 5 people have ever ran a business. Now I got to tell you, with the crisis of the day being the financial crisis I'm trying to describe to you, and this stalled economy that we're doing everything from Washington to just shut down, you've got to have somebody up there who understands what the ramifications are to the rules that they make. Look at Sarbanes-Oxley, Dodd-Frank, the PCAOB. I mean, my goodness, people, they have no idea what you and I are dealing with out here. I wrestled with these things my whole career. I know what overregulation does to us. I'm tired of it. And you are too. I've talked to many small businesses around this state. They're not hiring anymore. Do you realize that 80%, more than 80% of all the jobs that we're bragging about in this economy, that we're creating this year, 80% are part-time jobs. Now that's no way to build an economy. You know the second largest employer in this country is Yum Brands. They own Taco Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and Pizza Hut. Not General Motors, not even General Electric. There's something fundamentally wrong, people, because we're taking advantage of the economy that created the largest economic miracle in human history in the second half of the 20th century. And I'm here to tell you, career politicians did it to us, and we've got to fix that right now. Look, it's very simple. If you want different results in any business, but particularly in Washington, you've got to send a different kind of person to Washington. To continue to send the career politician who's more interested in getting reelected than doing the right thing, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get different results. That's why I'm in here. My background is very simple. My wife, Bonnie, stand up, Bonnie. And we did this together. And she reminds me of that every night. But I gotta tell you, if you want to know any secrets about me, don't talk to any politicos, call her, she'll tell you. We're very serious about this, but I gotta tell you, my mother was a teacher, my father was a teacher. We love this woman, she's a teacher. We have 2 beautiful sons, we have 3 grandsons, one's about a week old. Life is good for us. We've been very blessed. I lived in the best time of human history, in the best place in the planet, and we've messed it up, guys. My background prepares me to do something about that. I worked my way through Georgia Tech. I got a bachelor's degree in engineering. I got a master's degree later in engineering. I worked my way up in the business world, in large companies primarily, but also in some small companies. And I ended up, later in my career, becoming a Fortune 500 CEO. And I always say that to say this: you don't get there without proven results. You're going to make mistakes along the way, but you learn through that, through the successes and the failures. At Sara Lee, I was very blessed to have the opportunity to open Asia for Sara Lee. The first Asia headquarters of Sara Lee Corporation was in Hong Kong, and we were able to do that. At Reebok later, I was president and CEO of the Reebok brand, and we turned that company around by getting a historic deal done with the NFL, the NBA, and the NHL, and fundamentally blocked all the other brands, including Nike, out of the NFL, NBA for 10 years. They just got back in last year. The stock went from $7 to $59. Now, what I just described to you about that little turnaround happened in 4 years. I didn't need to be in something 20 years to get a chairman's position here or head that committee and then debate it. We got busy and found people to get the job done, and we did it. At Dollar General, a few years later, I was chairman CEO. I see some of you ladies in the office, a little twinkle in your eye. How many of you ladies been in a Dollar General? We have a few in the state, I think. But it was a great company, 75 years old, family. It was public, but the family was still running it. They had had an SEC problem and had been asked to leave the company. I was the first non-family chairman and CEO of Dollar General, and we turned that company around. We added 2,600 stores in 4 years, over 20,000 jobs. These are real jobs, not part-time jobs. And over $3 billion of enterprise value. Now, I say all this to say this. It's not about titles. It really isn't. It's not about my legacy. It's about being prepared to lead. You don't get in those positions, and you don't achieve results like that if you can't find other people through which you're going to get things done and lead consensus and get things done. That's how it happens in business. In Washington, I don't think they get that. Look, I want Washington out of my pocketbook. I want them off my phone. I want them out of my house. I want them to minimize what they're doing so the rest of us can get on with our lives. I've been overregulated my entire career, and it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen. Look, the solution to this problem that I'm talking about right now is not complicated. Watch this. I'm just going to give you 2 little tidbits. I'd love to have 2 hours with you because honestly, if we locked the door by the end of the day, we'd have a solution on the back of a napkin to solve the financial crisis. I am not exaggerating. It's politically difficult, but it's not complicated. We have $480 billion, almost $500 billion in redundant agencies in Washington, D.C.
There you go, Brian.
I'm running against 4 people. They're career politicians. They've run 41 times. How many times do you hear them talking about that? And the impact of regulation. Yeah, we'll talk about Obamacare. I'm going to talk about it in a minute too. But let me tell you something. We've got hundreds of Obamacares that we don't even talk about every day. And you see it in your businesses. I sure did. When you look at the second thing I'm going to call out today is even bigger. We have $6 trillion of U.S. money not in play in our economy today. Offshore, unrepatriated profits of U.S. corporations, because we're the only country in the world that double taxes or repatriated profits. The second thing is our banks have excess reserves because of overregulation, and they're not lending. Small town banks are not lending the way they could and the way that we need them to. And the largest companies in the world, the Russell 1000, they have over $2 trillion on their balance sheets, and they're not investing. You know why? Because the number one product out of Washington right now is uncertainty. I'm dead serious. I'm on a utility board. We need to invest about $1 billion a year, and that creates jobs, real jobs, building things. We're not doing that now because the EPA killed coal. Now they tell us they're going to kill natural gas. And let me tell you something. The way out of this box, God has blessed us with a way out of this box. Natural gas and our energy blessing is single-handedly will drive our... Guys, I'm sorry, but I mean, I'm way off script, but let me just tell you. The way out of here is not complicated. This election is very simple. It's very simple. If you like the results up there, we've got 4 nice people. I'd love to have any of them as a neighbor. I just don't want them as my senator. But in all seriousness, if they were going to make a difference, they wouldn't have already. They've run for office 41 times, so I think we understand what the priorities are there. But if you think that, if you agree with me that this financial crisis is real and it's serious and it's right here, right now, and you need a common sense business guy who can do something about it, then I'm your man. Let me ask you a question. When Ronald Reagan was elected, 1980, 79, he asked a question the night before the election. Anybody remember what it was? Are you better off? It's funny, I asked a bunch of 30-year-olds the other night and they thought I was crazy. 1980. I spoke in a class this week at Georgia Tech, and I made a little joke about, you know, Lafayette, right? The TV show. 1 ringy-dingy, 2 ringy-dingies. Yeah. No. If you look at the question that is before us today, it's serious. Is our kids and grandkids going to be better off than we are? And I'm telling you, the answer is no. And that's not right. It doesn't have to be that way. If you act right now, we can change that. That's why I'm doing this, because I believe we can change that. America has a $16 trillion economy. We have the good faith and credit of the United States of America. And my George, we were actively threatened to default on our debt. I'm telling you, this election is very serious, and we've got to put somebody in it to make a difference. We need somebody that cares more about the next generation than the next election. And I want to be that guy. Thank you very much. We've got time for 1 or 2 questions. Ed's here, and we definitely want to make sure he's got plenty of time. Yes, sir.
Regulation is not only killing private business, it's killing education also. And we have a lot of non-educators and a lot of people that aren't briefed on education. And school boards are not innovators. They become administrators for the state and federal government. And that's not right.
Can I just say I agree, and my dad is in heaven right now applauding. Yes, sir.
Certainly the financial thing is a big part of what's going on there, and I think all of us are pretty sympathetic with your views on that. But one of the things a lot of us are looking at is that, well, our government has abandoned our Constitution, and it started some time ago. There's supposed to be 23 things in Article 1, Section 8. Those are the powers of the federal government. And then there's the 10th Amendment, which says most of this stuff should be done at the state level. So a lot of us are interested in what is your view on that? How do you see moving power from the federal government to the states? We'd like to hear that.
You know, I heard an economist this week talk about employment, and he talked about 1 out of every 5 people are unemployed. And he put the problem at the fact that the federal government as a percentage of GDP is at an all-time high and has grown in unprecedented terms in the last 5 years. This president doesn't want a balanced budget. He doesn't want a budget. Well, I'm serious. He's getting everything he wants right now because the appropriators are accommodating. Well, who controls the largest appropriation committee in the country? The Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives. Listen, our government is so bloated, it's unbelievable, unconscionable. If our founders were to walk in that door, they'd be shocked at 2 things. The size of the IRS and the length of time people have been in service in Washington in elected office. There is no way no way, in my opinion, that they ever envisioned the rise of a career politician. Specifically, I'm going up there to fight. It's not just to cut costs, because you can't turn things around just cutting costs, but our federal government is way too big. One of the ways out of the box is to get it smaller. And I promise you, the other way is to get our $16 trillion economy going again. That's what I'm ready to do. Good question, thank you. Yes, sir.
Once again, Congress has made promises the veterans are not necessarily keeping. We're getting a lot of 1.5% pay raise in January, but our cost share of insurance is to go up higher than that. They promised us a couple years ago, our share will match our pay raise of anything in January. What are your thoughts?
You know, it's unconscionable to me that I came out of the Vietnam era and I watched how our veterans were treated in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. I'm encouraged when I go to Atlanta Airport and I see these kids right now being applauded as they get off planes. It's unconscionable, though, that we don't have jobs ready for the vets coming back right now. In this state, there are 3 cities that are doing really well. Savannah, Warner Robins, Columbus. Bonnie and I are from Warner Robins. The reason is military. It's unconscionable that we don't live up to our obligations. And the reason is that politicians are so busy worried about getting reelected that they're not taking care of their constituents. And look, people say, well, wait, that runs counter to getting the budget under control. No, it does not. Listen, this country was built on a strong military. We bankrupted the Soviet Union because why? We didn't have a weak military. Thank you, Ronald Reagan. And right now, I think it's unconscionable that we're going right back in the same things we did back in the 70s when we came out of Vietnam. And I, for one, am not going to stand for it. I remember those days. Good question. Think we have time for one more, Joe?
What about regulatory authority as neutering the congressional responsibility to legislate?
Thank you. You have hit my hot button. I'm on a utility board, and I've watched this. You know, and I was on the Port Authority down in Savannah. We've been trying to dig that port for 17 years. Now, guys, that's ridiculous. We've been digging in that port since Oglethorpe. Seriously. And look, that's in the 1st District. I know who's done what, and they haven't done what for 17 years. That utility board took us 14 years to get 2 500-megawatt coal power plants built are approved by the EPA. The EPA. We got it approved 2 years ago. Last year, the EPA comes back and says, sorry, we're going to rescind the approval. We're not approving any more coal-fired power plants. What do? They said, no, we don't care, just not coal. So we moved to gas. They come back this year and they say, we're working on it. We moved the lawyers over and we're going to kill natural gas the same way we did coal. Listen, the president couldn't get cap and trade passed. He turned right around and told the EPA to kill coal. I have a question for you. Where were our senators and congressmen while that was happening? Guys, thank you. I'd love to do this all day. I want to hear from Ed. And listen, this is America. I have never been more optimistic than since I've got involved in this. I've been never more sober than since I got in this. God bless you guys. Thank you. Have a nice day.
I want to welcome everybody here, which I did not do to begin with, and I do apologize. But we always welcome our VIPs first. And for those of you who have never been here before, it's not who you think they are. It's not our elected officials. We actually place our first-time visitors to this breakfast ahead of our elected officials as being our VIPs. So will everybody who's here for the very first time at one of our Cobb GOP breakfasts, please stand and remain standing. I think this is a couple from California, is that right? Yeah. You just moved here? I do also want to welcome our elected officials who we are very, very always pleased to have with us. And I want to recognize our solicitor, Barry Morgan. Barry, just by today, right? We already have welcomed Jack Kingston, Randy Scammahorn. Randy? Randy is our school board chairman. And we also have another school board member, Brad Wheeler. Don't, I want to welcome Bob Ott again. Another school board member. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of the title. Tim Stoltz. We welcomed our person that led the invocation, State Senator Hunter Hill. Good to have you. And Donald Fritz. Don, where are you? There. KSU chairman of the KSU College Republicans. Always good to have you with us. Those of you that have not looked at our website recently, please go on there because we're looking at renewing our memberships now for next year. We've changed the membership levels, so you really want to go on there and look and see what's available. Two of the things that we've added is we've added a $15 level for college Republicans and a $10 level for teenage Republicans. So hopefully we'll start bringing them in too. So right now, without anything else to do here, without further ado, I want to have his wife's going to introduce him. Very good. That's brave. Yeah.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Lindsay, and I'm delighted to be introducing my husband, and more delighted to tell you that our marriage is intact for at least another year. Last night, we successfully got the tree up, it's straight, and the lights are on. We're out here, and I know, and thank y'all for being here on a busy December morning when we know that everybody's got a long list. This is so important for all of us and for our country and our community. Edward and I have been married 25 years coming up in 3 weeks. We will be celebrating our 25th anniversary. He and I have 3 sons. Our oldest is 22, and he's graduating from West Point in the spring. And we have twins who are juniors at Georgia. So how about that game last Saturday night? We like that. And when Edward first got in politics, our family was very encouraging. In fact, he had run once and not been successful, and an opportunity came for the House race, South District 54, and my father and I talked him into running. Not that I wanted to have him leave our home during the 40 days of the session and be out and about, but he has a heart for caring for people. He cares for his community. He's a fiercely loyal person. He loves his family. His sister is here, Mary Stewart. She can tell you how he has been raised by a strong mother and 2 strong sisters and married a strong-willed wife. But as he moves on to this race, we are all encouraging him to do it because he has proven himself ability to make changes, to look for the good of the community. He cares about the community, he cares about Georgia, he cares about our country. So I'm proud to introduce you to my husband, Edward Lindsay.
I think you guys can all agree that she does fill the definition of my better half. You're going to ask that same question again, because I want to, all right? You're going to be the first person I call on. Well, it is championship Saturday. I must admit, having been raised by a mama who went to Alabama and a dad who was a die-hard dog fan, the idea of watching Auburn and Missouri is a little bit War Eagles. I respect the War Eagles. I love the campus. My son Harmon's second choice after he got into West Point. But I'm here to tell you, I do kind of look upon tonight's game the way Louis Grizzard sometimes looked upon football games from the north. You know, it's 2 mules fighting over a turnip. I know one of them's going to win, but I just really don't care. But I do appreciate y'all coming out on this morning and taking a few minutes to talk to me. When I first got out of school and went for my first job interview, I interviewed with a man who, at the very end, as I'm walking out, turns to me and says, "Edward, you have the odor of sweat about you." And I walked out convinced I did not have that job. And then about 30 minutes later, he called and gave me the job and let me know that odor of sweat was a compliment. It meant that I knew how to work. And I want to tell you right now, it comes from my earliest childhood. My sister over here can attest to this. We spent every summer of our youth on our granddaddy's farm. And my granddaddy was a great believer that idle hands are the devil's workshop. His idea of a garden was 2 acres. And guess who got to till those 2 acres? As I got a little bit older, when I was 14, I was packaging boiled peanuts. When I was 15, I was selling sliding glass door locks door to door. When I was 16, I was working in an ice cream plant in the freezer unit. When I was 17 and 18, I was doing highway construction, and I still bore my children every time we get on I-285 and tell them I built that. In college and law school, I worked my way through on scholarships and loans, but primarily through a lot of different jobs. I worked as a surveyor's helper. Now, you want to know what a surveyor's helper is? He's the guy who has to cross over the swamp when the surveyor tells you to go someplace. Matter of fact, it's where I first received my first pink slip, thanks to the Sierra Club that shut down the power plant project down in Florida. I also cleaned mildew off the side of houses. I built brick porches. I waited on tables. But mostly, my dad and I put together a vending machine company that helped pay my way through both college and law school. And it also taught me, quite frankly, who not to have as your employer. Because when I graduated, my dad asked me, "Well, son, we've done real well with this. This little business of ours has helped put you through college, helped put you through law school. Don't you think we ought to continue?" And I informed my dad there's a reason why I went to college and went to law school, and that's because I didn't have to work for you anymore. I then went on to Tacoma, Georgia, where I practiced law for 3 years as a small-town lawyer before coming back to Atlanta, and joined with 3 friends of mine, and we started a little law firm. And while we didn't get to the Fortune 500, we have gone from 4 of us to 80 employees in 3 states. In case you want to know what kind of law, I don't sue people for a living, I defend people for a living. I like to tell folks, I don't start fights, I just know how to end them. But that little business of mine has taught me what it takes to balance a budget, to meet payroll, to do what David was talking about, well, indirect, but I'll tell you directly. The scariest thing sometimes is to walk down that hallway and recognize that I'm responsible for not just the people in that room, but for their families. And to make sure that they have a place to go home to, that their families are being taken care of. And that's one reason why I got involved in public service, is because I get frustrated with folks in government that don't seem to understand that. They don't seem to understand that the heartbeat of our country are businesses, including small businesses, who are trying not only to make their own lives prosper, but to make the lives prosper of everyone that works for them. And if you want to talk about the dangers of Obamacare, come talk to me, because I've seen the insurance rates raised. I've seen our firm have to make some tough decisions, including not hiring some additional people. And so I understand that. I got involved in politics because I wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to take that philosophy, that odor of sweat that I learned as a young child, and take it to the Georgia General Assembly. I got elected in 2004. And I worked my way up to becoming the majority whip, where I've served for 3 terms. I didn't just take that as a title, but I took that as something that would enable change. I've developed a reputation in the Georgia House as being a problem solver and a conservative reformer. And I've worked very hard in that area. I've not only been present when the budget gets balanced, I've been in the room and had to make tough decisions during the darkest 5 years of our state's economic history since the Great Depression, where we had to not cut the rate of increase, but actually cut spending by over 15% over the last 5 years in order to balance the budget, because we had to. I've been there and made decisions to help carry the bills to institute meaningful tax reform that brings business back into our state rather than having fleeing to other states. I co-sponsored HB 87, which is one of the toughest illegal immigration bills in this country, because two fundamental reasons. I didn't believe that someone who's here legally should have to compete against someone who's not here legally. And I didn't believe that a business that's operating legally should ever have to compete with a business that hires illegal immigrants. Since day one of the General Assembly for school choice. I helped pass the original school amendment in 2008, and when the Supreme Court acted, quite frankly, in the utmost tradition of judicial activism and struck that down, I sat down with a coalition, and as a co-sponsor of that bill and as the writer of that bill, passed a constitutional amendment in the Georgia House and Senate, and then went one step further. I chaired the organization that led the fight in Georgia to pass it by the voters. We are the first state in the country to pass a school choice amendment by popular referendum. I worked for Alternatives to Obamacare, co-sponsored a bill that allows for Georgians to be able to buy insurance across state lines. I fought human trafficking, and I fought for open and accountable government. But it's not just what I've passed, but quite frankly, how I've chosen to lead and how I've chosen to do it. And I want to tell you about a few short examples. When it comes to property tax reform, I didn't read about it in a book. I didn't simply listen to some talking head tell me that we need to fix things. I stood on 5,000 doorsteps in my district and listened to people talk about the fundamental injustice of property taxes and how it's being done in this state. And as a result of that, I have fought diligently for property tax reassessment reform. I helped, along with my friend Chip Rogers, to pass the bill to help level the playing field. During the darkest days of the recession, it was my bill that passed the freeze that did not allow your local governments to raise your assessments for 3 years during the darkest days of the recession. I did that because my people told me that's what they wanted me to focus on. When it comes to human trafficking, you got my sister over here. My sister over here, along with a bunch of church leaders, came to me and said, Edward, in 2010, we've got a fundamental problem in this state, and it's a sin upon our state. We're not just a national hub for human trafficking, we are an international hub for human trafficking. And let me be blunt when I'm talking about human trafficking. I'm talking about the enslavement of little girls and little boys to become sex slaves. And we have a fundamental problem in this state. But we couldn't get a bill, they couldn't get a bill out of subcommittee. So they came to me in 2010 and asked for me to take that on. I must tell you right now, I did not want to take that on. I thought for sure there had to be somebody that would be better than me. But sometimes little brothers should listen to big sisters. And I did. And as a result of that, we built a coalition that folks didn't think could be put together. We put together the Attorney General, we put together prosecutors, law enforcement, we brought in social workers, we brought in church folks. We brought everyone to the table and said, no one leaves until we have a solution. And as a result of a bill that we couldn't get out of subcommittee, we passed out of the Georgia House and Georgia Senate with only one dissenting vote. And we are now recognized as the national leader as having one of the strongest anti-human trafficking bills in the country. Our school amendment, once again, wasn't something that was taught to me by policymakers, but was taught to me by children. After the Supreme Court struck down the bill that we had passed a few years later, I went out and I sat down with kids in Cherokee County, at the charter school up in Cherokee County. I sat down with kids from the charter school up in Gwinnett County, whose lives would be fundamentally changed, and a lot of them would not be able to reach the American dream if we did not make some fundamental changes and bring back school choice into Georgia. They were the inspiration, not some kind of lobby. And as a result of that, we built a coalition. We did what a lot of folks didn't think possible. We got Democrats and Republicans to sit down together, and we passed it out of the Georgia House by a wide margin of 3 votes. We had to get 2/3. And we got it out of the Senate. And then we did something that no one thought that we could. We passed it by the voters of Georgia. That's leadership. And one last example, in terms of leading from the front, I was also the point person for Georgia's redistricting, in which we faced a challenge. The first time in Georgia history, Republicans were in charge of redistricting. And the Democrats had their swords out. They had the Obama Justice Department ready to strike us down no matter what we did. And they were out for us. I had to deal with my own caucus to make sure that they understood what needed to be done in order for us to do it right. And I had to show by example that it's okay to redraw your lines. No Republican's district was more radically changed than mine. I went from a 70% Republican district down to a 56% Republican district. I voluntarily did that in order to help us draw fair lines and, quite frankly, to help us get a majority in the Fulton County delegation to make some fundamental changes. Folks, I lost my backyard. So when folks came to me and said, you know, Edward, I can't stand this map because after all, you know, I lost my mama. I said, don't talk to me about losing your mom. I lost my dog. But I take great pride in the fact that I went back to that district that I redrew, and in a district that only was 56% Republican, I beat that spread by 9 points. And I beat Mitt Romney by that same 9-point margin. So I know how to run in a lot of different districts. Now, why am I running for Congress after doing what I've done in Georgia House? Like David, I'm concerned about where things are going, not just within our state, but within our country. And I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated as someone who's seen it from a state level. I'm tired of a lot of the problems that we deal with on the state having been created on the federal level because folks don't seem to up there understand what's going on down here. And I'm also frustrated, quite frankly, with our own party. A lot of us have seemed to lose the will to go. We seem to be more prone to want to throw rocks or stand in front of a microphone than do the hard work. And I've learned over the years that you have to be able to willing to roll up your sleeves to get things done. And that's exactly what we need to be doing now up in Washington. We are, quite frankly, a national party in crisis. And it's not because there's something wrong with our philosophy. Poll recently came out. Overwhelming majority of American people agree with us that you shouldn't be raising the national debt level without making some fundamental changes in terms of spending. Overwhelming majority of the American people believe and understand that Obamacare is an economic train wreck. And yet only 24% of the American people have a favorable opinion of us as Republicans. What that tells me is that they agree with what we believe in, but they don't think we know what the heck we're doing. Which is true, which is why we've got to make some fundamental changes and get up there and start doing the hard things. Sometimes folks ask me, Edward, what wing of your party do you belong to? Do you belong to the Tea Party wing? Do you belong to the business wing? Do you belong to the fiscal conservative wing? Do you belong to the social conservative wing? My answer is simple. I belong to the governing wing. In order to belong to the governing wing, I believe that all those parts of our party need to be in the room making the changes, making the decisions. That's how I operate as a state representative, and that's how I will operate up in Washington. I believe in a vibrant, dynamic conservative movement. Conservatism is not static. Conservatism is about reform, it's about change. It's about taking on the challenges of our society head on and facing them down with conservative solutions. And we've got to make some fundamental changes. What happened up in Virginia, I think, is a roadmap for how we should be coming back. We had a candidate up in Virginia who lost by only 2 percentage points, despite the fact that he was outspent by $15 billion, despite the fact that, unlike a lot of other states, Virginia was very much impacted as a result of the shutdown. A lot of folks lost their job. He was way down. But he came back because he took on Obamacare, not just because it's an economic train wreck, which it is, but because it represents a fundamental difference between our party and the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party believes in the life of Julia. Y'all all remember that? The Democratic Party believes and cradle to grave, you can't get by without government. Republican Party is fundamentally different. We believe in small government, efficient government, low taxes, low regulation, for a simple reason. We believe in the individual. We believe that the individual is freed as much as possible from the burdens of government, whether it be local, state, or federal, that individual will prosper, both spiritually, financially, and in terms of the quality of life. That represents a fundamental difference. That's why we're fighting so hard with Obamacare. That's why we have to fight so hard on so many other levels. Because there is a fundamental difference between us and them. In closing, I've worked very hard, and I hopefully have established a reputation of having the strength to lead, the patience to listen, the wisdom to know how to negotiate without compromising my principles, the experience to govern, and most importantly, the courage to stay the course when being shot at from all sides. Those are the fundamentals that are going to be necessary if we're going to turn this country around. And we will. We are a great country. Our future is still ahead of us. I'm a Ronald Reagan optimist. And with that in mind, we're going to go far. Thank you. Give me your question.
Okay, let me restate it a little differently. We all know what the Constitution says
Yeah.
about what the responsibilities of the federal government are.
Yeah.
How do we devolve power from Washington, D.C. back to the states where they belong?
The 10th Amendment, quite frankly, has no teeth. It's there. It's largely ignored because the people that are interpreting the 10th Amendment are federal employees. That would be federal judges. People that interpret it are federal congressmen, federal senators, a federal president, and federal courts. We have no ability by the states to step in and go, you've gone too far. So I believe in a constitutional amendment which would allow 2/3 of the state, whatever gets passed by the federal government, if 2/3 of the state come back and say, you've gone too far, they can reverse a federal decision. I believe that's the first step for us to be able to do so. And with that puts teeth in the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. And I believe that's how we do that. Who's next? Yeah, over here.
Wouldn't repealing the 17th Amendment do the same thing?
17th Amendment is part of that, and I do agree with you. What I'm suggesting goes even further. 17th Amendment also needs to be repealed. And quite frankly, we need to be going after tax reform in a step-by-step process. Because keep in mind, in order to get the 17th Amendment changed, we've got to get 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, 3/4 of the states to go along. That's going to take us a little while. So what we need to be doing is first coming up with a flatter tax, coming up with what David was talking about in terms of reducing the corporate taxes so that this flood of money that's sitting offshore will come back. And as we work our way through it, then we go to the fair tax. I don't want the fair tax until we get rid of the 17th Amendment. Keep in mind, Nancy Pelosi loves the fair tax because she wants it on top of the income tax. I want the fair tax, but I want it only after we get rid of the fair tax.
Mr. Lindsay, I appreciate what you said about wanting everybody at the table, not just the Tea Party, not just the moderates, etc. What do you say to my neighbor? I was driving up out of my subdivision this morning and told her where I was going. She said, yeah, I go to those every now and then, but just tell them, we don't want rhinos. We want real Republicans. We do not want to be a socialist country. What do you say?
I don't want a socialist country, but I'm here to tell you that what I've discovered over 10 years, a rhino is somebody who disagreed with you yesterday. A true Republican is someone who agrees with you tomorrow. And I also take the Ronald Reagan attitude here, where someone who's with you 80% of the time is your friend, and don't focus on the 20%. What I've learned in politics is that it's very important to keep your friends permanent and your opponent's temporary. The person that's against you yesterday and may be against you tomorrow could very well be the critical vote you need today. I saw that with the charter school amendment. I had to get 12 Democrats. Quite frankly, 10 of them you would call extremely liberal Democrats because they come from very impoverished districts who knew, regardless of ideology, that the present school system wasn't working. I had needed those people. Now, that's the only time I'm ever going to get their vote. But I got their vote that day because I made sure that they understood that when we made fuss, but I'm not going to create an enemy out of it. And to your friend who doesn't want to be here today, let me just sort of, you go back to them with this. Decisions are made by those who show up. The party's philosophy is determined by those who show up. Ask her next month to come to the breakfast. Look, that's how
You talk about returning power to the states or to limiting power on the federal level. How do we limit the president from executive orders? Because this president has gone way beyond anything that ever should have been done with executive orders. How do we limit that?
Well, the same thing would apply what I'm talking about when it comes to my constitutional amendment to executive orders. Well, one thing you do is you send folks to Congress who've got the fortitude to stand up to a president and say, you can't do that. You are infringing upon the powers of Congress. And I'm here to tell you, I don't care if he's a conservative Republican or a liberal Democrat. If a president oversteps his constitutional role of being in the executive, I'm going to stand up to him.
How?
How? What we're talking about, the constitutional amendment that I talked about in terms of fighting those particular bills that we're talking about, in terms of going after them, in terms of passing legislation to limit the authority of the executive department.
Why hasn't it worked?
Why hasn't it worked? Because we haven't sent the right people willing to fight.
We take the Senate.
That's one step at a time. And we've got to do that, and we've got to do it smartly. We got to understand that we only control of the three institutions that will pass a law. We only control one of them. We don't control the Senate. We don't control the White House. It's not something that can be done
or the
tomorrow.
judicial system.
Yes, it's not something that can be done tomorrow. Okay, this is a long journey. The constitutional amendment I'm talking about is going to take time. Everything's going to take time, but we must begin, and we must begin today. Yeah.
And recently, the Senate redid their rules so that 50% or the majority of the Democrats can name federal judges. Federal judges are appointed for life. Federal judges are becoming legislative and interpreting and imposing on us.
That's true.
How can we reverse that expansion of liberal federal judges?
Well, once again, it's going to be, I think they're going to rue the day that they did what they did. I still remember the President Washington talking about the role of the Senate with Thomas Jefferson. The role of the Senate is to cool things. And by doing what they did, this nuclear option, I think is going to come back and bite a lot of folks in the you-know-what.
In those days, though, the senators were produced from the states.
Yes. But here's my point, and I agree with you, but here's my point. It's going to take a while, but we got to do that. One thing I do believe in is that we need to have, I'm not a great believer in lifetime appointments for federal judges. I believe that we need to change that. And I know my finish my point on that. We had a very activist court, quite frankly, overrule the charter school amendment that we did pass, the school choice amendment that we did pass. They created a word in Georgia's Constitution that wasn't there in terms of exclusive power of this local school board. That's nowhere in the Constitution. But unlike the federal, we're going to see those judges again. They're going to be on the ballot again over the next 2 to 4 years to be able to answer to us. Federal judges aren't, one way or the other. So I do believe that we ought to be limiting the life. Joe, am I out of time? Thank y'all very much. I know that candidates will fuss a lot and anything else, but I do agree with my good friend, Tricia. This is a time for renewal as we await the coming new year. Let us remember the man that freed us from sin, and may you all have a blessed Merry Christmas.
good. I need some people to volunteer to clean up. We also, today, will have to put the tables and chairs up to prepare for decorating this afternoon. So I need 6 strong guys to volunteer to do that. Raise your hands now, please. 6 of you. Keep them up so I can see who you are.
Rob, he said strong.
Okay, good enough.
That's the guy who has to stand in the chair to take pictures.
Okay, Phil Wood, see Billy, the young lady there with the hat on. That's somebody else that I don't recognize enough, and she's my right hand, left hand, and everything else. She'll tell you how it has to be done, okay? And all I ask you to do is, one of the reasons we don't put the chairs up and take them out every month is because that's how you wear out and tear up the chairs. I ask you, those of you who are doing it, be careful with them because they are expensive to have to replace. Okay, we're going to have candidates or people's announcements going up. How many are we going to have today? Come on up so I can see how many of you are. While they're coming up, let me remind you again to go to cobbgop.org. cobbgop.org. There you can purchase your tickets to the Christmas party. If you don't get them this morning. And secondly, you can review or join the membership online. So I ask you to go to that. And don't forget the Christmas party Tuesday night. And come and get the 6 to 9 o'clock Tuesday night right here. Okay. I'm going to ask each one of you to limit your comments to one. Can I get everybody's attention, please? We're not finished. Y'all will kindly give your attention to the people who are on the meeting 15 more minutes. Y'all know me, we'll get out of here on time. So if you will, just give us 15 more minutes of your precious time. And each of the candidates, our people up here, 1 minute, please, only.
Wanted to do something.
Good morning, I'm Rob Axon, and I'm here representing Barry Loudermilk, who's running for Congress in the 11th District. I just want to say real quick, since we were here last month, we've had a few organizations join our team. We've had Family Research Council, Concerned Women for America, Freedom Works, and this week Madison Project. So the folks that are in the trenches in the battle, they know who they want up there beside them. I would ask you to just take a few minutes this week sometime and go and visit standwithbarry.com or loudermilkforcongress.com. Check out Barry, there's some videos there, there's plenty of information. We'd love to have you on the team, just contact us. The contact information is on the website. And again, I would like to take a moment too to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. Thanks for a great time.
Good to be back with you guys again. My name is Matt Schultz. I'm running for State School Superintendent. I'm also on the Bartow County School Board, and I think my Cobb School Board friends would agree with me that we'd like to see a little less intrusion from Atlanta down to our local government also. Some of those same things would apply that we were just talking about. I'd like to leave you with just 2 quick things. You're going to hear a lot in this campaign about funding, and it's going to be a big part of this campaign. On one side, you'll hear people saying, well, we've spent too much money on education, and on the other side, you'll hear people say that we have cut education too much. Well, what I'm here to tell you is both are true. You know, and on the funding side, the fact that we spent too much money, I'll just tell you, over the last couple of decades, we've had a lot of growth in Georgia, as evidenced by our congressional seat pickups. And what I'll tell you, those folks are moving here and they're bringing kids. So a big factor in that increased education spending is the fact that we have more kids here. So I think we need to remember that. The other thing is we have a funding formula that hasn't been funded for years. So neither one of those are the argument. The question that we need to be asking is, how are we going to fund public education? And once we make that decision, we need to stick with it, because right now we're not serving anybody, we're not serving our children, and it needs to get fixed now. The second thing I would tell you that you hear is that Georgia's 45th in education, we're doing a bad job. That's based a lot on SAT scores. And what I would just tell you is you need to take a bigger look at that. Number one is Illinois. 5% of their kids take the SAT. Now, if you look at the most recent scores, Georgia's 45th. We have 75% of our students take the SAT. If you factor in participation rate, we go from 45 to 11. It's not a fair comparison. On top of that, Georgia's 5th in the country with minority participation in AP scores, and we do the 2nd best in that category. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bert Reeves. I'm running for House District 34. I'm a Cobb native and one of your former assistant district attorneys here in Cobb County. For those of you who don't know, the 34th district is made up of essentially northwest Marietta and the southern half of Kennesaw. It's a great district. In addition to all the people in the district, it has 5 very unique entities. Kennesaw State University, McCollum Airport, Barrett Parkway, the Wellstar Health System, and then the Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield and Park. It's a great district. It's got some really neat things in it. And I've always been a fan of the scripture, to whom much is given, much is required. There's been a lot given to this district, and it needs real leadership, and that's why I'm running. I'm going to keep working hard. I've spent the last couple of months talking to the residents, citizens, and business leaders of this community, of the 34th district, to really get my finger on the pulse of this district, and I'm going to keep working hard. Everyone have a Merry Christmas, and see you Tuesday night at the Christmas party.
Hello, I'm Kevin Nicholas, and I'm your House District 43 Chair for the Cobb County Republican Party. And I wanted to bring this to your attention. There should be a flyer on the tables, and what this is we're having our House District 43 December event on December 17th at 7 p.m. It's at Sterling Estates. If you've never been to Sterling Estates, or if you've seen it across from Mount Bethel, I'm going to tell you, Bob, when he was talking about when it was being built, it's such a beautiful facility, and inside is magnificent. I had the great opportunity, it's an elderly folks home, had a great opportunity to actually spend a little time there and listen to Christmas carols with some of the residents. And I found out that pretty much all of them are Republicans. So we're going to have about 20 people at least there from the residents. But I encourage all of you to come. We're going to have John Pageant as our guest speaker. Joe, I'm sure, will be in attendance. And we're also going to do an email blast and just make some announcements. It's free of charge, food, coffee, etc. So we're really looking forward to seeing everyone there. We're just trying to give back a little bit more to the community and just continue the Cobb County meetings like we're having. And we're going to start kicking these House District meetings off. So thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Good morning. I'm Christine Rosman. I'm the Cobb County Coordinator for David Pennington, who's running for governor. And very much like Mr. Perdue, he is a business guy, and he has some business ways of turning around Georgia. He's going to, I'm hosting a meet and greet and over at the East Park Clubhouse, which is across from the Mount Perrin Church, and that's going to be this Thursday, the 12th. And he also will be here for the Christmas party on Tuesday. So thank you. And it's if you want additional information on that, just get with me and I can give you more information. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Derek Barr. I'm here on behalf of my dad, Bob Barr. And first of all, I have to respectfully disagree with you, Ed, but I thoroughly enjoy working for my dad. More importantly, Bob Barr has experience. He has experience that matters, has experience to lead and get things done. You can't argue with results because when he was in Congress before, Republican Congress, they balanced the budget, they reformed welfare, they cut taxes, and they impeached a Democrat president. There's a lot of politicians that vote the right way, that say the right things, but that's not enough. We need someone that has the experience and wherewithal to get things done for this country, for Georgia, and for the 11th District. And that's why we need to elect Bob Barr. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Karen Halsey, and I'm running for State Representative for House District 45. I announced my candidacy on Thursday night, and I'm very excited. I was asked to run basically by a lot of the members of our community because we deserve a very involved and engaged representative down at the Capitol. And fighting for fair funding for education, we need to protect the crown jewels that we have in Cobb County. What we're known for is our middle schools, our high schools, and our elementary schools. I'm fighting to limit government, and I believe that government should be transparent and accountable. I want to know what's going on with our taxpayer dollars because I'm paying those taxes. I am fighting to make this a business-friendly state because we need to grow the economy and we need to build jobs. It's not the government that provides the jobs, it's our businesses that provide the jobs. I want to protect or strengthen the laws that we have for our most vulnerable populations, our children and our seniors. I'm involved on an elder abuse task force, and I was involved on Representative Lindsay's when he was when he was passing the human trafficking law, which is very critical for our state. And I want to promote the constitutional rights of our individuals. I believe it was best said that the government that governs the least governs the best. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all know Colonel Larry Mrozinski. You sent me down as a delegate to Tampa, and there I learned where we stood at this point in time as far as what a Republican. My colors don't run. If you notice, my signs are red. They're red because that's the Republican color, and they're red because it's true to heart. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the son of a Goldwater girl, Dorothy Mrozinski, and I'm also the son of a POW Stalag 7A Moosburg, Germany, my beloved father. And I will tell you this, 3 decades I served in the military, the time I served in the State Department, I know foreign policy. You send Colonel Mrozinski, I've done it. I've done it with foreign nations, and I've also done it as far as national security. I've written on health care. I've been there and done that. I will deal with our adversaries. See, I don't need strategists when I go and have someone who's a lobbyist, because I have it upstairs. I don't need that. Same thing I have in my campaign. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have a choice. Yes, it's a serious one. No deals in this campaign between candidates. What will be said and what won't be said. We're going to talk about the issues. We're going to talk about them. And I will tell you this. I'll promise you, the one thing you're looking for, oh yes, one thing that I know. You're looking for character, you're looking for honesty and follow through. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been before congressional staffs to brief them for Condi Rice, senior military advisor. I know what it is. I also know how to bring it to the table and compromise. But what you'll get with me, you'll get character has fingerprints. And you'll see in this election where they've been. And I'll give you honesty. I'll give you integrity. I'll tell you what else I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you your country back. Ladies and gentlemen, to the greatest generation and to all the military families and veterans here and across the world, God bless you, and understand this. Have no fear. Help is on the way. Merry Christmas.
Good morning. I wanted to speak for a great charitable Christmas event that's happening right down the road at the Walmart at 210 Cobb Parkway. It's Clark Howard's Christmas Kids. This event every year benefits over 4,500 children in foster homes who otherwise would not be able to have Christmas presents. It's going on until about 2 o'clock this afternoon at the Walmart at 210 Cobb Parkway. And I ask if you can, grab your families, go, you select a child who has a list of gifts that they would like for Christmas, and you can go and take care of those Christmas lists for them. So I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and hope to see everyone at the Walmart this afternoon.
Hello, I'm Donald Prince. I'm the KSU College Republican Chairman, and I assume most of you have children, and if any of them go to school at Kennesaw State, I would encourage you to send them to our meetings. We have candidates come and speak. We've had many before, and it's good to get involved young, to educate yourself before you become a Democrat. So it'd be awesome if you could send them out. We'll have food, candidates, and a lot of our members have gotten jobs and internships through it. I have, so it's another good thing, having a job. So.
The people that were responsible for reorganizing the college Republicans at Morehouse College. And I tell you what, that has received a lot of national attention. Beth actually interviewed the young man that's the college president down there, and that has caught fire around the nation. And people are saying, what? Morehouse college Republicans. I think it's great. So if you see anybody who's involved in that, congratulate them.
My name is Barry Morgan, and I'm currently your Solicitor General. I'm running for re-election next year. And since we've last met and I had the opportunity to speak to you, we've had a few more endorsements to our campaign. We have, to go along with the Lieutenant Governor, the Attorney General, several members of our school board who are here today, several of our mayors. We've added the former police chief. Cobb County has endorsed George Hatfield has endorsed our campaign, and former Sheriff Bill Hudson to go along with our current Sheriff Neil Warren, to go along with our former Republican district attorneys who have retired as well. But that's all fine and good. I'm going to ask for your vote when it comes up at the appropriate time next year. But this Friday, the 13th, from 2 to 4, our office is open. We have a holiday open house. And I would ask each and every one of you to come. This is our 21st year of having a holiday open house, and I hope that you can make time to do that, to come by. I know everybody says, we know I work during that time. Well, take a little bit of time out and come see how the employees that you employ at the Cobb County Solicitor General, what the types of things they can do for you. So I would say to you as well, Merry Christmas, and I hope that you have a great holiday season.
I'm sure y'all want to get out of here, but appreciate you guys coming out. My name is Billy Kirkland. I'm with the Perdue campaign. I just wanted to quickly get up here real fast and let you know, when Chairman Dendy contacted us about speaking, the first thing he said was, now look, this is a real conservative group. How does David feel about the free speech? And I said, well, of course he supports the Constitution. And Chairman Dendy said, good, because we need to come give us free speech. And just, I say that for a number of reasons. One, because communication is so key and important. David has done some great things in the business world and throughout his career, and that was done because he was able to communicate his message to his employees, and the employees were able to take that message and communicate it to the people that wanted to buy their products or the people they were serving. And we want to do that as a campaign. So Chris Perkins is back here with our campaign. I'll be here, and so will Ryan. We'll have sign-up sheets to where you can give us your email address, your phone number. We want to make sure that you guys know what David's doing, what he's saying, and can get his message to share it with your friends and your family members as well. So we'll be here for, until you guys leave, find us, and you can sign up, and we'll keep you updated on what the campaign's doing.
Hello, my name is Gus Mattress. I'm here because I'm chairing and coordinating Governor Deal's re-election campaign here in Cobb County. I'm going to quote our esteemed college president from KSU and say it's another good thing having a job. Home Depot, Lowe's, Bed Bath & Beyond, Ernst & Young, just some of the companies that have added over $1 billion of investment over the last 4 years. Site Selection Magazine has selected Georgia as the #1 place to do business. It's in terms of other ratings, whether it's Forbes or CNBC, have put Georgia in the top 5 in stiff competition with places like Dallas and Virginia and North Carolina. The governor's doing a great job. If you'd like to talk with me about that, please reach out to me. You'll know who I am and how you can get in touch with me. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Badges, we're going to have them in January, badges, and those that even spoke to Tanya Bogo about it this morning, yours will be here in January. Just make sure that we have your information. Again, the Christmas party is Tuesday night. One thing I failed to mention, besides the cost of the party, we ask you to bring an unwrapped gift, unwrapped toy. And what we're doing is partnering with the Georgia National Guard again this year to make sure that their children have a good Christmas, because they are serving us daily. And we desperately need to help a lot of these families. So bring an unwrapped toy. See you Tuesday night. If you don't come Tuesday, Merry Christmas.